Well, before we get started and jump into the good stuff here, I want to welcome everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. I'm excited. I know I'm going to learn. I first want to give everybody. I'm Jamie Loprice with the Alliance Fast Pitch. I wanted, just in case you guys aren't familiar yet with the Alliance, because we might have some non-members here. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of who we are and why opportunities like this with Dr. Hanson are really important to us. But we started the Alliance in 2020. It was really formed by these coaches and athletes and industry leaders who said, hey, let's start working together and let's put the athlete first in what we're doing and what we're building. And so fast forward, we're in our third season. We have over 10,000 members. We have our national championship event. I'll show you guys a map, how we organize the country. And it really is this vision of league play. And I love the things we do on the field, off the field are really geared towards the athlete and about providing our athletes, our coaches, our parents with this pathway to play and this pathway to work together and to learn. So this is how we divided the country into our 8-member leagues from a competition standpoint. And really what we do is we want to make your life easier as a family in travel ball. So a clear pathway to play through our league schedules, opportunity for all teams to earn a berth to the national championship. That was a really big key piece of us coming together and having the kids learn to compete and earn it on the field. And then really to provide this community to collaborate with, which is what's so great about all of you guys taking the time to get better tonight and to learn and to share. We want this to be super collaborative and all learn from each other. And it's also providing athletes, coaches, and parents with resources like Dr. Hanson here. So that is that's the Alliance for you guys and why and how we got here. And to bring it full circle with Dr. Hanson, and we have your bio posted. Dr. Hanson has worked with, I know you've worked with the Yankees, you've worked with college baseball teams, college softball programs, with athletes, coaches, teams, executives. Wrote a book with Ken Ravizza. That's if you have not read Heads Up Baseball, I know we spent some time in that, and having a mental performance coach when I was an athlete at Texas A&M changed our whole trajectory. We went from a team that was a top 5 team in the country, but was struggling, was ups and downs. We didn't have leadership. And we brought in that key element of mental performance. And my junior year and senior year, we go to the World Series. And I think a lot of it had to do with the work that we were doing on the mental side. So I'm really proud of that. And it was actually the current Texas A&M softball coach during a rain delay in Clearwater when I was talking to her, and Dr. Hanson walks up and she said, hey, you two really need to meet. And I'm glad that we did. And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited what Dr. Hanson's doing with Play Big Academy, and specifically what he wants to do for softball, for youth softball, and helping parents and coaches and athletes. And that's what we're here to do tonight. So Dr. Hanson, thank you so much for being on and being a part of the Alliance Fast Pitch and our mission of serving our members.
Well, it's great to be here, Jamie. Thank you. I've enjoyed getting to understand what your vision is all about, and that was part of the excitement and the connection, really, because they overlap. Where the Alliance is really creating this big environment where really good things can happen. And to me, talking with my own son, who's a 19-year-old baseball player, about it just yesterday. He was home and it was like the environment. You can be mentally tough. It's like, yeah, I've got this, and you work hard, and I'm going to do my thing, and I can only control myself. But man, the environment that you're in is so powerful. Mm-hmm. Even at the level, I'm not going to aside, but like on the level of genes, like they can take a gene, put it in a certain petri, if it's in an environment that it's supposed to be this, it becomes what's in the environment for it. It isn't like it's predetermined. And so I really acknowledge you for creating an environment where really great things can happen in softball. And that's really what, to me, the mental game is about: the environment inside your own head and body, first of all, and then helping coaches and parents create that for players to have the best possible experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and speaking of that, I think we probably have coaches, we have athletes, we have parents that that are joining us. I know we sent out a survey before this to try to get a feel of what are some of the biggest questions, what are some of the biggest challenges. And I think that's what we want to hear from you guys too tonight, and make this super interactive. Dr. Tom's going to answer questions as they come in, but do you want me to kick it off with a couple of questions that we already got, and we can dive into the conversation?
Absolutely. And I would just to echo that people to type in, it's like, hey, you talk about even just a topic. If you don't formulate a whole question, to be like, hey, here's a topic I'd love to hear about. And that's because that's what I'd like, is to have it be as valuable as we can make it. And so if I know specifically something to talk with, it's really rare that it would only be one person that would want to know about whatever your question is. So let's go.
I summarized a couple that I think are common, and I went through this as a female athlete myself, but around that feeling of my daughter feels like she failed the team. And so, and then the one that's very similar is letting a bad play go and refocusing on the next play. So how can we address a couple of those, of just, my daughter is a competitor and she just feels that she let her team down and her teammates down?
Yeah. So it's all challenging. The whole thing is challenging, because I work from a big context down to those, but we're first and foremost designed for safety. We're not designed to play softball. It's easy to get caught up in where things are in the modern world. And we're really we're designed to hunt and gather in a tribe. And then we got these big cortexes came online, and we were able to farm and whatnot, and then play softball. So that's kind of a speed version. The consequence, though, is that we got Miggy back here. Our amygdala is like, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? So even right now, if people are watching, it's like, that's going on. And if you feel safe, then you're able to access your talent and think clearly and perform well. And if Miggy says, no, danger, I'm not safe, then we kick into this survival mechanism, and there's a clamping down. And so the whole tribe thing is big with the question here, because it can seem like, well, it's softball. Come on, it's just softball. Just chill out. It's not life or death. Well, for that Miggy, if you're in a tribe, if you get kicked out of the tribe, then you are, that is kind of a death sentence. So it can occur that way because all the transaction happens below the level of cortex. So it's not like the text is saying it's softball, but down here it can occur as life or death. And so that can really trigger all that on both of those questions. One is, oh, my daughter feels she let the whole team down. And then, well, I made a mistake. How do I let it go? Because it can trigger really big picture things that when we're saying, hey, just relax, it's just softball, or just go out and have fun, we're talking to text, the cortex. And it's sort of like, if this was a taxi, or an Uber, Miggy, the amygdala, would be driving, and Tex is in the back seat saying, hey, could we go left? I want to go here. It's like, well, you go there if the driver takes you there. But the first and foremost, and why I even would be in this profession, why I could make a living doing it, is this, that we're designed for safety, and our brain doesn't distinguish well between, well, it's softball, or you're chasing a softball in the street. And so that's the big context. So you have to be able to work through that, and change. One, yes, you can have tools like my ABCs. So this can be the punchline to every question, because in the end, it's like, to win this pitch, do your ABCs. A is act confident, act big. B is breathe big. Breath is almost always comes out as the top tool that people learn on the mental game side. And then C is commit big. It's like bat far to bat on ball. I don't feel confident. Well, do your ABCs. Act like, breathe, commit. D is do it. And so that's, on the one hand, an answer for both. It's like, okay, well, I know you felt like you let the team down. Well, go out and do your ABCs. That's That's a lot better than just, hey, forget it, because it's a tool that you can use. And the same with a mistake, but there are more tools that you can use to actually help Miggy mellow out and not see it as a threat. So that's a start. I don't know how that lands, but that's like, oh, why are we even here? The design of a human is such that these situations come up, and then there's tools to work with.
But before we even dive into the tools, do you hear this a lot? Because you work with baseball and softball, and we talk about it all the time. It's a game of failure, right? We are going to fail. It's inevitable. Even a successful batting average, right, is 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10. So in that regards, the importance of mental game, like how do you talk to athletes and coaches about just managing failure?
So there's always two aspects to it. One is, and I've got a mental mechanics model. One is the lens. Like, is there stress in softball? Most people would say, well, yeah. But then from a mental game standpoint, it can seem like, oh, you're being picky. But to me, no, there isn't. There isn't stress in softball. It's not in the rule book. It's not inherent. Did you ever play, for example, did you ever play where it was fun and it wasn't stressful?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it can't be that it's inherent in it. It's in our perception of it. And you've heard that it's like, oh, nobody can make you mad. You make yourself. But the thing is, that's then where the freedom comes, because it's how you see it. There's the lens of how the situation occurs to you. Does it occur as a fun challenge or a dangerous threat? And that's where I spend most of my time working with players on that lens. It depends. Is there stress in softball? It depends on the lens. Depends on the lens. Is because of that, because it's a perception. It can be super fun. We talked to Pete Rose. He's like, in the World Series and in this big in the 70s, he's coming up to bat in this famous game against the Red Sox, and he comes up as like, oh my gosh, to Carlton, isn't this fun? Isn't this amazing? When I talked to Derek Jeter, when I was with the Yankees in 2001, it's like, well, you're generally better in the playoffs even than in regular season. What's up with that? He goes, oh, it's more fun. There's more people. It's on TV. There's the whole atmosphere. It's so much more fun. Whereas most people, like, that shuts them down. So that's what I mean. Is there stress in baseball or softball playoffs? It depends on the lens. So we can talk about how to craft that, but I'm just, again, wanting to lay out the mechanics so that we can understand, well, what's actually happening, and then speak answers into that. And then no matter how you see it, there are things to do, such as the ABCs, such as your pre-pitch routine, for a pitcher or defense or a hitter. Have something that, even though you have no confidence, here's what I'm doing, and have clarity. I would rather have someone have clarity than confidence. It's kind of a false choice, but if you had to pick, clarity, this is what I'm going up there to do, really brings that on. So having is the whole failure, back on the actual question, it's a perspective. Is that a failure? Well, that's you got out. That's the outcome. However, can you have a process? It's like, well, I did my process, but that's not enough to do your process. When I was an early coach, I would be out there saying, hey, nice job, you guys. You took all your breaths before each pitch. That was great. And on the scoreboard behind me, it's like 12-3, we lost. So you need to do it with the will to win. And I have another model for that, the kebab, about getting onto the kebab of recognizing that, yeah, I'm gonna have my target and I'm going to do my process. And then there's mental devices to help you see the game in such a way that you don't get hooked by it, because it isn't the getting out. All that means is you're out. It's, are you hooked off of your game, and now you are focused over here on how much you stink and how much, all these negative thoughts rather than on your target. So yeah, it's a game of failure, but I don't usually put it that way. I want them to see it in terms of a game, connect with, well, why do you play? And if you succeeded all the time, you wouldn't play. If you just wanted to win, you'd play against third graders. So there's an element to it. So it's a maturation of the understanding of what you're really doing, that
Interesting.
makes the difference.
So it's almost framing it as, because we say it's a game of failure, but is it, if that's not our lens?
Right. I never put it that way. Unless the person's really talking about it, that it's a game of failure. If that's working for them, that's always the the wild card, is like, what works for that person. Seeing someone get all angry and upset, it's like, well, normally that's not helpful, but does it help that person? Can they be angry and upset and then have a way to get that burns it off of them? Like, I have an assessment, and if people know the DISC assessment I use, along with a couple of other things, that for an online assessment that gives us a good look at someone to see, well, how would they then handle failure, anger? Can they process it through and be back, or does it spin them out? For me, in the end, it's like on and off. You get on, like you're playing your best, you're freed up, and you're trusting, you've got clarity, and you're on. And then you get off because of something happened, like you get pulled off, and now you're upset, you're feeling bad, and now you're off. And can you get back on? Can you start on as you can get? Feel good first is my first principle. Do things such as the ABCs to feel as good as you can up front, and then notice when you get off and get back on. That's kind of the whole thing in a nutshell.
We have several questions, and kind of specifics to my guesses. Some of them might be answered similar, but this is two people actually talking about overcoming anxiety or emotions in the batter's box during a game. Can you talk a little bit about just some tactics or strategies there?
Sure. So it's always, again, the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So that whole lens thing, I don't know if this shows up. It kind of does. If here's X, I'm going to bat. Can you see the X?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to bat. Now it goes into this lens, and it's either seen as like, oh, this is awesome, I'm confident and I'm excited. That's a positive, or a negative down here. It's like, oh, a threat, don't strike out. I'm anxiety in the box. And this is the choice of actions. Like, this is what I can choose to do in the moment. Up here, I can do a lot. If I'm calm and confident, I can choose to do my breath. I can choose to this. As a pitcher, I can think through things, and you have more access to your talent up here. And then down here is where we choke, because it's like, hey, just relax, or remember, take a breath, and you just have no choice of action. So the more you can work on that lens, and I use tools like I'm a big tapping guy, and there's havening, which talks directly to Miggy, which we can get into more if you want. But the question was, okay, what do you do at the plate? So my first thing is have prepared by practicing, let's call your ABCs. It's the simplest. It's probably my most useful tool that I've made up, because you can just, hey, go do your ABCs. Push comes to shove, my new program we'll talk about is called Win This Pitch. How do you do that? Do your ABCs. So act confident at the plate, and walking up to the plate. Breathe, and then commit and do it. So what would that look like? The question would be all the way at the box. Have a way that you get it. Well, first off, you're going to carry yourself. Act as if you are confident. Most of the best stuff, after 30 some years of this, I would consider like somatopsychic, meaning using your body to change your brain mind, rather than thinking you're going to think your way into a better way of feeling. It's way easier to act your way into a new level of thinking than to think your way into a new level of acting. So if it only was one thing, it's like, sorry, Dr. Tom, we only have 5 seconds left. What's the deal? Act confident. That would be it. So act as if you're there. Breathe, take a breath. For years, ever since we wrote this first Heads Up Baseball book, I interviewed a bunch of guys that Ken Revisa had worked with for years. Hey, what's the biggest thing you got when you work with Ken? Major League Baseball players. Oh, the breath, the breath between each pitch. And Ken was kind of bummed out, actually, because he wanted to be more something else. But he was big yoga. It's really where it came from. So the breath, and there's a lot to it, but generally in and out through your nose and into your belly as much as you can. And then C is commit big, fat part of the bat on the ball. Fat part of the bat and the ball. Have a last conscious thought. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go up and do my ABCs, even though I have a 0 to 10, a confidence of 1, and my heart feels like everyone is going to ask me about it because they could see it pumping out of my jersey. My second home run of all time when I was in high school, I would give myself maybe a 2 on confidence. What I had was clarity and commitment. I don't know how I acted. I don't know really how I breathed, but I was committed. It's like, hit it. I can just remember it hit the ball, just hit it. Because I wanted to get it into the lineup, and and I was like, but it was, for some reason, it just clicked in, just hit it. And I hit it and start running, and then I look and it's out of the park, or it's on its way. And then I started to act big, like, oh yeah, I got this. So confidence is way overrated. You can feel bad and still get the job done. It happens every day. It's funner to be confident. So we talk about how to do that. It's just not necessary. And you can use that anxiety to help you channel into, if you have a clear, simple plan. Usually what happens, though, the anxiousness pulls people off. Now they're thinking, oh no, and they're not on a task relevant cue. See ball, hit ball, fat part of bat on ball, a clear mission.
It's so interesting. I'm thinking back of when I was a hitter, and I actually would perform better against better pitching. And I think it now, based on what you said, it was a much more simple plan. And it was a very clear and simple plan versus allowing all these other thoughts to come into my mind while I was facing pitchers. Just keep it super simple. And it ended up being much better for me.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's the thing people often do. Well, I remember reading when I was a kid about, like, Stan Musial, whom I interviewed, and not then, but later, Willie Mays, and there was another guy. It was a book chapter about these 3 guys that hit 4 homers when they almost didn't play the game because, like, Mickey Mantle's thumb was broken or something. And so it all can shrink it all down to just, okay, well, I don't have all access to me, so I have to just keep it simple, and boom. Mm-hmm. Problem is, then you do that and say, wow, just think if I really swung, then I would do it. Then I'll do great. And then the wheels come off.
So we had a couple questions about going into the box, and we've gotten now a couple that are, what can I do if something doesn't go my way? So if I have a bad at bat, if I make an error, what are some strategies that I can do to not focus and dwell on that bad play?
Yeah. And I presume they mean in the game.
Correct.
Right. Because there's 2 things. I mean, to me, there is training to do that is very much akin to the weight room, that you don't bring your bands or your dumbbells out onto the field with you. You bring the benefits of having done it. So I much prefer, of course, that someone say, I have a dream and I'm going after it, or I know the mental and emotional game is super important, so I'm going to go into it, rather than waiting till there's a problem. But that's still the norm. It's sort of like someone say, well, I'll get the weight room if I get injured,
Mhm.
you know? So, anyway, the mental game is the same. You can train for it. So, then that's apt to not be such an issue. Again, it's that lens. How strong is that lens to determine how you see the error? All that said, I'd still say the same thing. That's, to me, it's the power of the ABCs. Is you want to, well, have a release, have something that you've practiced. 60-70% of astronauts now are going to go to the moon again. They're going to say 60-70% of their time they'll practice things going wrong. So it's not negative thinking, it's smart to really prepare for that. Hey, if baseball or softball, sorry, is a game of failure, well, let's be ready for it and not be surprised. So having a release, there's a lot of things. Aaron Judge has a quote. He's a baseball reader. Pick up the dirt, squeeze it, throw it away. Now that doesn't mean that it actually goes out with it. It's a metaphor. It's symbolic. But if you've practiced it and use it, then okay, I do that. Now I come back, and or taking off the glove, taking off a hat, taking off a helmet. Nowadays, you don't have a whole lot of time in between pitches, which I think is good. It does just underscore the importance of being able to, like, I'll train people you train so that one breath and like a word and a color have a lot of power. You see advertising, they keep doing the Geico ads or the Progressive ads or the Farmers, they hammer you with it so that you make an association. Brains work on association. And so they're wanting to anchor that in so that if you want this motor oil, you get this happy person, motor oil. They link them, and then, oh, I need motor oil, I'll be happy. It's conscious or unconscious, there's a link. So we take that and train for it so that you can practice letting go in one breath. Let it go. All right. See ball, hit ball. So you've practiced that. That's your thing. But if you practice that, that's super powerful in the moment.
So what I hear is to actually practice the mental game. So there are, because we see it all the time in youth sports, right? We're doing hitting lessons, pitching lessons, throwing lessons, fielding lessons, going to practice. But what are some things I can actually do to, and I think that's what you just hit on, but those practice it, right? I have to get repetition before I'm actually in some of those situations.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's why I'll talk about confidence and consistency training for softball. That, I don't have a magic wand, and I can sit here like back on the Derek Jeter thing. It's like, how many moms say, hey, Jamie, just go have fun. And it's like, that's not bad. I mean, as a parent, you can't control how your daughter hears that, because she might hear that as stressful. I work with a lot of players with the yips, and sometimes it's that the dad, more often, was very hard on a player. But sometimes it's that my parents were so nice. I felt so bad. I just wanted to make it because they'd given so much to me. It's like, so here's the parents are so great and loving and open that the player takes it in a stressful way. So you can't control how your daughter takes those things. What was I about to speak to then? It was kind of another one of my
The practice.
the practice thing. So there's stuff that you can do at night before you go to bed that programs you to think. And then you wake up in the morning, and you just kind of get up and you stumble around, and then off you go. And that's just chance. It's like, oh, I'm in a good mood or I'm not. And so you want to have a practice that you deliberately feel good first. And my cards here, it's like, Feel good first is my first coaching principle. Even have a card for it. Feel good first. So you're going to take batting practice, well, feel good first. There's things that you can do, for to give you a few, before you go in, rather than I'm going to hit to feel good, I want to feel good to hit. That's, that's where it's like you're going to play. You're going to play, feel good first. You're going to play, and you're going to feel good. You can see these, and then play, rather than play and hope that you feel good. So everything is going to go better if you feel good first, and you're doing it in advance. It doesn't guarantee anything, but you want to have a mindset and a frame before you go in, rather than be in there. I had just a quick experience from when I was coaching my son's 12-year-old team. I was assistant coach, and it was a playoff game for the park ball. And then there was also travel ball. But this was a playoff game for the park, and we all got in here. And the other coach had talked to our coach about, hey, can you not pitch this guy because we have a travel ball game tomorrow? And like, it got under my saddle. And then their guy's out there and he's balking. He's doing an illegal move. He's 12 years old, but I'm like, balk. I'm yelling balk from the dugout. It's hard to even tell the story, but he's balking. And I was like, hey, Blue, are we playing baseball? Just being that guy that, but I was triggered because I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I'd gotten hooked. And I got off and I didn't catch it. Now I'm going through the ditch through this game. And then he goes out, it's a balk. And then the coach goes out and tells him what he's doing. And it's like, that happens again. And I say it again. And the coach gets mad now at me. And then he goes out and tells us, here's what you're doing. And I go, hey, that's his second trip. He's got to pull. Just a complete train wreck that I caused. We won, but all that to say, I teach this, and I've dedicated my life to this. And when I wasn't pre-framed, I got hooked, and then I was not the guy that I want to be. And so it is with all of this. Feel good first. And the second biggie is be on target. So you get clarity on your targets. 3 is let it go, being able to let go of stuff. It's a skill. And I teach things on how to do that. And so all that to say, the pre-frame, and for a parent, obviously that's big. For a coach, that's big, to have pre-thought this stuff, pre-framed, so that it's like, oh, here's what I'm in there to do, rather than you just go in, you get caught up, and some other parent is the Hanson of the day. And then you get triggered by that, and then you're da. And then it spins off and if you were in a calm, if you said, hey, do you think it'd be good to just yell at a guy, balk when he's balking, and it's a 12-year-old game and it doesn't really affect anything anyway? No, I'd let that go though. Come on. But in the moment, I did. So with all of them, it's that pre-frame. As a player, what's a game of failure? What, are you going to wait and see how the first at bat goes? That's not very smart. Will it affect you? Yeah, but not as much if you're pre-framed. As a coach, as a parent, as an umpire. Anyway.
No, it's so good. And it's actually, we got a question. There's a couple about, parents and just like treatment, I guess. Here's a good one. Being able to go on the field without wondering what my coach or dad is thinking about how I'm playing.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. That's my advice. So you can't, because we can't really control our thoughts the way they'd say, oh, just focus on this. Like, yeah, right. So that would be, all the stuff I've said. You know, what a big one really is recognizing that you're not your thoughts, and that you have thoughts, but you're not them. Like if I said, hey, pick your nose, and you say, hey, pick your nose in your own head. Everyone says, hey, pick your nose, and then you don't pick your nose. There's a voice saying pick your nose, but you don't do it. So who's talking and who's listening? And so being able to have those thoughts and also have these feelings and be able to like put that aside, and that's where the clarity comes in. I'll often talk with a player who's had a lot of negative voices, because the voice in your head is really your own voice. It's not theirs. It sounds like it's theirs, but you're creating it, so it's actually your voice. It's just you're doing a good impression of your dad. And so you want to be able, it's like, hey, don't think about that. Well, okay, great. If that happens, great. Chances are it's not going to be able to. So if you're playing first base, I'll say, and it's not that it happens a lot in travel softball, but if it's dollar beer night and you're playing on the road, it's a pop up at first base in foul territory, you're going over, they're all yelling, I got it, I got it, I got it. Don't, hey, drop it 21, don't drop it, right? And it can happen, but I mean, I'm just wanting it to be extreme. What do? Well, you catch the ball. Like, how do you do? Well, you look at the ball and catch it. Do you hear those guys? Yeah, ideally not, but I probably do. But what do you do if you hear it? Well, I look at the ball and catch it. And if it's a third out, you flip it to them and off you go. But it's like we're playing on the road in our head. It's just every day can be an away game, in that we got a negative voice going. The purpose of that negative voice, back on my first comment, is to keep you safe. It's a thing about safety. It's safer to not play at all. It's safer to not throw than to throw. You don't make a bad throw if you don't throw. I work with the yips a lot, and it's like, it's your body protecting you. It's all a protection thing. And so it's safer to sit in a classroom and get your exam handed back, fold over, or on your phone, versus have a ground ball come to you. If a ground ball comes to you, it's coming to you. It's not anything you can pass on to someone else. And so you're going to have that. So I'm calling it now humaning, to have these voices and these feelings. You want to recognize it. Acceptance from a monster of the mental game. Acceptance, like, yeah, I hear my dad's voice. I hear that. And come on, Josie, put this ball in there. Hit it to me. And I've got my ABCs and what I'm doing. And then the pitch, the ball, nothing happens. And now I can hear him again. It's like, yeah, there it is. Breath. And I have what I do, fully accepting that that's there. And ideally I get rid of it, but it's very Pollyannish to think that you're not going to. Otherwise, I wouldn't be working with major league players. I was texting a guy just before we got on. Hey, remember, simple wins, like a reminder. The other night I played pickleball. Amazing, fun. And okay, I'm at my best. What am I like? I love metaphors. Like I said, metaphors like, I could flow like water. It's like my second night. It didn't happen a lot. It's more like, well, and then I said, okay, between every point, I'm going to take a breath, exhale, and say, flow like water. Good, right? And me. It was 6 or 7 points before I remembered it. I'm nice to my partner and what score? I don't know, how do you keep score? Why do they say 3 things? And then it's like, oh, wait a second. I finally settled down enough to remember that I was going to do that on every point. So that's, we're humans playing this sport, but we weren't designed for that. It's the whole safety thing is huge. So you have to accept a lot of that. Doesn't mean you like it. It doesn't mean acceptance is not equal to resignation. Resignation means that is the case and there's nothing I can do about it. Acceptance is, yeah, I hear that little voice and I'm going to square this ball up anyway. So
I'm curious, as you've worked with you've worked with baseball and you've worked with softball, both on this mental side of the game. Have you seen many differences, or are things pretty similar in working with the different athletes?
At the level of doing stuff, it's the same issues, the same humaning. They're different in terms of, I find softball players more, meaning women, more open to talking about it. I find them more open generally and like, yeah, and like accepting this. I think I told you the story of where I was subbing in because Canada just died. I was subbing in a softball clinic, and here's like 8 of the top 20 teams head coaches sitting around a lunch table, and they had just gotten their food. It's a round table, there was no seats, and I was walking past and someone said, "Hey, Tom, you gonna have lunch?" I go, "Yeah, I'll just go over here." No. And they all got up, took their new hot food and went over to a bigger table so I could sit with them. And it wasn't, it wasn't like I was some rock star. It wasn't that. That was just generous. And so I really almost prefer softball in a lot of ways, in part because of the kind of more open and generousness of players. Reminds me of something. I got a prop here. And also the speed of the game. It's fast and everything's close. This is you've probably seen one of these. It's like playing big is expanded, acting big, breathing big, commit big, and then playing small, contracting. Under pressure, we tend to contract. And my play big is about expanding and being big. And this is also your breath. I have people breathe in and breathe out. So, and being open. So I find the general openness in softball is greater than baseball. Otherwise, in terms of what you're dealing with and what I think someone ought to do, it's the same.
What are some of the, especially working with some of the college softball players right now, what are some of the common, I don't want to call them issues, but common things that you're seeing over and over that you're working on with these players? What are the main issues, I guess, that they're bringing to you?
It is pretty safe to call them all confidence and fear. It's pretty safe to say, well, they're contracting and they play their best when they've expanded. And they're I'm trying to think of anything I kind of haven't said. They're like, here's what I'm doing when I'm on, and then I get off and I got to get back on. And so it's that, and whether a major league player or a 10U player, they're pretty much the same. A little different things, but for the most part, it's still that. It's access to your talent. You're this good. How much of that shows up on this next pitch? And there'll be fears and doubts that pull. There'll be then a distraction and tension. Distraction and tension would be another answer. It's like, well, they're distracted and they have tension. And that again would be a 10-year-old or a major league player. Other things going through their mind. And then that would trigger, oh, I'm not safe on my mental mechanics model. And now they'll contract, and then you choke because there's tension where you don't want to have it.
I was looking for a couple, I feel like a lot of them are similar questions. And I would imagine know the answer. With your ABC methods, do you use those across multiple sports? Is that?
Yeah. I use it with executives. Got guys sit and trade stocks all day. And that's a core thing of what I teach them. So in a course or when I'm coaching, it'd be go back to a time when you were confident. Notice how you were acting, breathing, committed to, because it's a big thing there also is individual differences, is I don't know, the wild card, meaning it tops everything. I had a pitcher, one of my son's games, like the pitcher threw 6 innings. They threw a combined no hitter. Guy was 6 innings. He was money. Guy closed it. He was money. 6-inning guy. I said, dude, tell me about your mindset. Oh, I was like, I was an assassin. It's like, they killed my family. Every batter was killed one of my family members. Like, okay, cool. That worked for you pretty well. Yeah. Okay. And the last guy, he said, well, I was kind of smiling, laughing. It was sort of like I was in a sitcom and I was just kind of joking with them and like, watch this. This will be funny. And they're like, well, how could you be more? But that's what that individual at that time, that was the best mindset for them. And so that's on. There's one guy, he's like, I'm an assassin that's going to take out these people. Another is on means I'm like a sitcom. It's like a Lucy Arnaz. And well, what is it for you? And then being able to do that. I've worked with a guy who didn't like to take batting practice on the field. And then he gets called to the major leagues. It was like, what do you do when your idiosyncrasy kind of conflicts with the team norm? Like, how do I tell a coach, that's one of the challenges now. And I work with this a fair bit where somebody grew up like a pitching coach. And now I'm going to go to my D1 school, or now I go to high school, or now I go here. And now the coach wants me to do something else. What do you do? I was the first person when I was at the Yankees, the first guy I worked with. It's like, well, the AAA hitting coach wants me to do this, and the big league hitting coach wants me to do this, which is the opposite. What do you do? So, dealing with that to again get to clarity. Clarity, that's like, whoa, that's the issue. But what is the topic? The topic is clarity. You lack clarity because of this dynamic. So I'd see that. How do you not get mad at the blue? And I look at these and knock some through. I don't know how we're at time-wise. What role does emotion play in sports? Huge, because you're human. I don't know if I got to the top there, but dealing with mean, oppressive coaches in high school. That's a really great one because it's so real. One is being able to accept. One, you can say, okay, you're in an emotional weight room. You're going to have that guy your whole life. There are going to be guys like that. You got to be able to deal with it. And so accept it. Like this Bobby Knight, I remember a long time ago reading the guy, Alford, I think was his name. It's a player, wrote a book about dealing with Bobby Knight, who was yeller and screamer. It's like you let it go past you and you listen for the information and not take it personally. Easier said than done. You need tools, but at least that's the idea. It's like, okay, well, this guy's my Buddha. He's teaching me to deal with this. It's like you get in the weight room. He's like, you're putting on weights. And so being able to learn to deal with that is great. More though, I would look to try and get to someone, get her in a different environment. There's only so much, but if you can't, then you don't go belly up. You find ways to do it. Then you need some real power tools. Yeah. And so on with that. What emotion plays a huge role in being able to, but accepting it and being able to work with it, not, I've got this emotion, so it's bad. And people, player cry, and it's like, but that's just how I am, I cry. But then she pitches well. How does a player deal with a parent that expresses disappointment during gameplay? Same, it sucks. And you'd want to help, you'd express it. That for one, there's in the moment, there's the ABCs and other tools on the field of what I've said. Otherwise, it's, hey, let's have a conversation about, um, can you, I'd like to talk about how you act at the game. That's a pretty mature thing, but that would be the conversation to have. If I'm working with the player, I'll coach her on how to have that conversation, as opposed to my having that conversation, because that's like the empowering thing. How to deal with the fear of losing playing time. Well, that's why I like when in the beginning I give these, like to give frameworks, because then it's like the framework then applies to particular rather than just picking off these things. Player deal with fear of losing playing time. Well, use it to the best of your advantage. Use it to channel in for these things that I'm talking about. Learn to tap, which is a way of communicating directly with Miggy, to just let emotions go. You need a good emotional laxative, but actual tools, not just to say that. Should player view an error, making a mistake in a way that helps them? What would be an empowering way to see this? I would ask a lot of questions. How do you keep a routine from being a ritual or a compulsion? That's a cool question. You keep in mind that a routine, it's all in service of, like, I want to play this, I want to free myself. It's really all about freedom. If you want another way to look at it, it's all about liberating yourself. And it would just be connecting and keeping enough awareness of what you're doing. Does this liberating me, or is it entrapping me into, oh, I got to do this? What is the purpose of it? Is to get me to act, is to win the game. I want to get a hit. I want to win the game. I'm big on outcomes, because they're linked. To me, that's this kebab model, that it's the process and the outcome are one thing, rather than two separate things. So many people, and it's all process, it's all process. Well, no, it's not. But we can come back to that if you want. So it's like keeping in mind that this is what I want, and I can do it with this, or I can do it without.
I think it would be good to talk, because I've heard you say letting go is a skill and an actual tool, and maybe that could even lead into your programs as well, that where you actually give tools to work on certain things. Because I would imagine as I'm looking at a lot of these questions, that's what I think people are getting at, like, how can I continue to work on this and train on this?
Yeah. So the letting go. So I've got these 5 biggies. They're like principles, and let's play big, so they're biggies. One is feel good first. I'm going to do what I can, get good at that, do it in the morning, do it, that whole pre-frame thing. 2 is be on target. Be on target. It's like, well, what do you want to have happen? Magic question. That's a question that I could use as a reply to every question that has been asked. Oh, well, what would you like to have happen? Well, I'd like my mom to blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, if that, then what would you like to have? Well, I'd like to play and have fun. Okay, well, align up with what it is that you want, get clarity on what you want and line up with it, is the answer. Easier said than done, but at least that you'd have that, what do I want to have happen? Whereas otherwise, if you don't have clarity on your targets, you're like in the soup. I talk about, say, if this was a bowl of soup, be in the soup. Well, it's hot, versus being out here looking at it saying, wow, it looks hot. It's very different. You want to not be caught up in the emotion of it. You be able to have a big enough frame that you can be there. So, but that's all, again, easier said than done. So it's a training thing. So I do have a program that we're launching really today, and we're going to run a special for the association here through Friday. I have a player, coach, and a parent program. For the player one, it's called Win This Pitch, Confidence and Consistency Training for Softball. It's just what I've been talking about. Takes you through. It's an online program on a nice platform. It's beautiful on the phone, as well as here. There's some printouts. At some point, it's nice to be able to print out and use essentially worksheets. But it's not, and it's me talking through doing stuff like the ABCs. It's one thing to have it as a concept, but it's another to have me say, take a deep breath. Now close your eyes. Go back to a time when you felt great. That's right. And doing that, now you're what I call on the field, or you're in the gym versus in the stands. Oh, that's an interesting concept. Like talking about push-ups versus doing push-ups. And so the bias is really toward here's stuff to do that train you, what you focus on, you feel. So let's do this exercise that helps train you on what to focus on. And though it's great, I have it bundled here that there's a parent and player course that that then you can do together, such that then the parent has these things to talk about with the child. And then a coach version as well with the same thing, and making that be that you'd get all three, so a coach would know what all is going on, again, so that you understand these. I've kind of spoken this way in concept, like in models, but then drilling down into very concrete, actionable things. So to me, a major thing is this idea of pre-framing, so that you don't pull a Hanson and go balk. The guy's balking, just be an idiot. My gosh. So that but you have to pre-think that, or you're just at the mercy of the environment that you're in. These other teams, parents are some negative word, and then you get hooked, but you don't get hooked as easily if you're pre-framed, and it's not, it's just coming in. So online port, where they all can be bought individually, but right now it's a coach bundle that has all three: parent, player, parent, coach, and then the parent and player one. And so you guys have links to send out, and I have little videos on that. And we're just putting this out right now. If you have questions, there'll be ways about it. And I'd say, hey, if you get it and you go 30 days in and you want your money back, we'll certainly do that. If you have a whole organization, I've done this on the baseball side, a whole organization for the whole team, talk to me, because we can work out a group deal so that the whole team, or the whole 7,000 team organization of the Warriors or something, that have it run through the whole thing. So it's like, here's our mental game approach, and we do it systematically. We're not waiting till people are someone's in a slump and then like that. So it is training. And you also asked about the let it go. I mean, it is my oddest but most powerful tool is tapping. You can look it up. There's tons of research. This is a book here. Oh, it's a real hardcover book, but it's not like I made it up. I've been doing it since 2001 or 3. And it to help move stuff through. That's what I mean by it's a physical moving to the brain, rather than saying, oh, Lisa, you did your best. I mean, I don't mean to make fun of it, but it's just not as powerful as actually doing something that mechanically, it's a science thing. You don't have to believe in it. It's science. And then I'm certified in that a few ways. And then there's another one called havening that's equally weird. But if you've ever been kind of stressed out, and then you go for a run or you go to the gym and then you feel better, well, you just used your body, in effect, because it's a false dichotomy: body, mind, brain, mind. It's one thing. It's a person playing softball, not a brain and a body. And so it's easier to use the body with things like that. If I'm here now, I'm like, hey, listen up. This is going to be the most important thing I say the whole night. Ready? Well, it seems like I'm going to say something, and I probably would if I kept going, but I just changed my physiology, rather than, hey, think a confident thought, Tom. Think that's nothing. That's okay. But again, using your body, and that's where these tools are to let it go, so that you'd have in the program, you'd have It's like I had a bad game, go to this recording and do what I say, do it along with me to release it. Is very different from, hey, you'll get them tomorrow. So
Tom, with the player link, the player, the parent, and coaches, are these, and maybe there is no difference, but this, if my daughter is 11, if my daughter is 14, if my daughter is 17, this is applicable to athletes of all ages, correct?
yeah, and that's part of it with the listening. If they can understand English, they'll be able to do it. And the younger side, all the more doing it with the parent, it's great to do it along, because then you're sitting looking together at what Hanson says rather than you should do this or that. I mean, I have my own son, my daughter, but particularly my son, it's like I would get a little bit of got it, Dad, when I'm like, hey, you've seen my PhD diploma from the University of Virginia. I've written these 4 books. I was a hitting coach at University of Virginia. I was a tenured professor. I was a head college coach. I've read 3 or 4 of these books. It's got a wall of unread books, but it's still in them. That's still his dad. And so the more it can have unity on something other than head to head, a lot of people find it extremely useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have links to send out. I can actually, do you want me to go ahead and put
Please.
put this one in the chat? This is for player and parents.
And these bundles, we're putting them together or as this special offer to get this launched. And as you'll see, the coach and the parent one, there'll be more to come. But right now, the thing to do is to start in on the player one, because you want to know that. Just do that, and it will all continue to unfold. In part, also, when you give me feedback, that's part of why having such a discounted price for the bundle and for this launch through Friday, we'll do this, and is then I want feedback. It's like, because you have a chance to mold it and say, hey, well, I'd like more on this. I don't understand this, or my daughter has this, and then I put it in rather than having to hire me to coach. Oh, that said, there is a I do one-on-one stuff. If there's a one-on-one, if someone is like serious about their softball, have a dream, or there's maybe something they just know they could do this, but right now it's this. This assessment that I alluded to before, you'll see an offer on the checkout page where the player would take this assessment, or the coach if you want to do that. But and then we'd go on a Zoom call like this and go over it. And then I can really customize, oh, here's what you need to, here's the issue, here's what you need to do, go get them. And then they can check back with me. But that's there as an option as well.
Awesome.
Oh,
Anywhere,
there was
go ahead.
Well, there was another question that I was going to speak to. How does a player know when their anxiety needs professional help, such as medication or psychotherapy? Well, I can't give some kind of official answer, because my degree's in PE, really. It became kinesiology while I was there because it sounded smart, but it's like PE, I like PE, and I just kept going. So I'm not a psychologist. It would be the degree to which it's debilitating. I think to the degree to which, for my actual answer, I guess, would be to use tools that I give you, and if that doesn't mitigate it enough, because it's anxiety. I mean, I have anxiety. I get, but it's back on the thing. It's like, okay, well, is it debilitating? Is it kind of ebb and flow? And it's like, well, I have it, but I need to do this anyway. So you do it. It's like, it's sort of the age. What are you going to tell? Hey, just stay off social media.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. So that's kind of what I would say. about that.
Well, I think this, I know for me, I can speak to actually practicing this and putting a focus on the side of my game changed my career. And it's interesting, you hear from a lot of players that, or teams, it is why college programs are hiring you, right, to come in and to work with their team. I think this is a really important part of our game. And I see this all the time, Dr. Tom, of like, we don't people will talk about it like we need to talk more about the mental side, and here we are now and actually have a program where you can work on it and you can work on it together. I think that's really, really cool. I think I'm going to send this to my sister so that her and my niece can work together on this. But I think that's so powerful when we can all use the same language and, you know, hold each other accountable and start to work on these things. So I appreciate you sharing and just answering everybody's questions. I think we got every single question answered. So I guess from here, we will send this out. We'll make sure in an email that everybody has access to the programs and to the different bundles. Is there anywhere else where people can go and just learn more about you and learn more about Play Big Academy, or how they can reach out?
Well, there's drtomhanson.com. It's not very elaborate. I would say no. I mean, this is what I'd want them to, because this is what I'd want them to focus on. If they have questions, they could ask me through you, or I'm Dr. Tom Hanson at Gmail, DrTomHanson. That would be that. I mean, obviously there's the books, Heads Up Baseball, Play Big is my actual favorite one. It's a fictional story of a guy, teaches the ABCs, a guy learning that over the course of a game and a half, like that. But that's, to me, the thought to end with is that it's a relationships for my own son in particular, but certainly for my daughter as well. The reason I say son, because one, he's in baseball, but two, he's really got a dream of like playing in the major leagues. And I always prioritize the relationship over the teaching. Like you get thrown out at third base, make the third out at third base. When he gets in the car afterwards, oh, wait and see. I mean, because he's got plenty of time to learn that, such that I don't want to jump on him with that. So for me, it ends up being kind of seasoning, because I wanted the relationship intact. The biggest thing is the love of the sport. The biggest thing is the love. I wanted to cultivate an environment. We can end with, it's the environment. What is the environment? More so than a specific skill or tactic that I would teach you also, it would be, what's the context? The context is that which gives meaning to the text. The context is king or queen. That's like, what environment do you create as a parent, as a coach, where you're structuring how people perceive a situation, you're looking to influence that lens such that they see it in a positive way, and in a really helpful way, rather than the negative. And so, and the research is clear, well, powerful anyway, on the people who are become great. So much of what their early environment was, they had teachers or environments that fostered a love of the thing more so than a technical thing on a piano or whatever it might be. And so that was my big focus with my kids, both of whom have won a national championship, been on a national championship team in volleyball and baseball. Not that it's about that, but I did have a parent once, or a coach, say, I can tell your son has never had a coach that's yelled at him, because he plays with a sense of joy and goes for it, rather than he's not contracted, he's expanded. My words, but that's what you're looking to create. And so what I'm wanting to provide is something that can help foster that, because otherwise you don't know what to say. Like, I can remember coming home, my dad saying, did you get any hits? but I remember him as struggling because it's like, I don't think I want to ask that, but I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to talk about. So
Mhm. Interesting.
anyway, like that. That's what I most would want, that the relationship is there and thrives, because you're more a gardener that's trying to create an environment where something grows, rather than you can't make the person something.
I like it. We started with environment and come back to it. Well, I appreciate, thank you for everybody that joined us too. And Dr. Tom, thank you for sharing your time with us and offering this to our athletes, to our coaches, to our parents. I think this is so valuable at the youth level. If I really encourage people to and do it together. I think doing it together with your team, with your daughter, with your parents could be, it'll it'll help you on and off the field. That's for sure. So thank you. Thanks again for joining us. And we'll make sure that we'll send a follow-up email and make sure everybody has the information.
Great. Enjoyed it. Thank you very much. You
All right.
created a great environment
I
for the
appreciate you being a
conversation.
part of it.
All righty.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.